Today's episode originally aired on January 4th, 2023. The Side Hustle the Small Business podcast is currently taking a break until January 3rd, 2024. But in the meantime, we wanted to reshare one of our favorite episodes. Rob Friedman started out as a lawyer, but quickly realized it wasn't his passion. He did a complete 180 and started growing a following on his social media account where he discusses all things pitching. We admire Rob's courage to make the jump and to follow his passions doing something that not many people are doing. We look forward to seeing you again on January 3rd, 2024. Welcome to the Side Hustle the Small Business podcast, powered by Hiscox. I'm your host, Sanjay Parekh. Throughout my career, I've had side hustles, some of which have turned into real businesses. But first and foremost, I'm a serial technology entrepreneur. In the creator space, we hear plenty of advice on how to hustle harder and why you can sleep when you're dead. On this show, we ask new questions in hopes of getting new answers. Questions like, how can small businesses work smarter? How do you achieve balance between work and family? How can we redefine success in our businesses so that we don't burn out after year 3? Every week, I sit down with business founders at various stages of their side hustle to small business journey. These entrepreneurs are pushing the envelope while keeping their values. Keep listening for conversation, context, and camaraderie. Rob Friedman trained to become a lawyer at Emory University. After practicing law for a few years, he co-founded Digital Envoy, a media and information services company, in 1999. As Rob's education and career developed over the years, his love of baseball was always there. In 2014, he dove into the world of content creation. His niche, not just baseball, but pitching specifically. Thus, Pitching Ninja was born. Since starting Pitching Ninja, Rob has amassed over 400,000 Twitter followers, 100,000 Instagram followers, and even has his own Pitching Ninja merch store. Here to share the story of his career, his business, and Pitching Ninja is Rob Friedman. Rob, welcome to the show.
What is happening, my man?
So, it's a funny thing. I'm going to be asking you questions about your background and all this stuff. And I know a lot of it because we've known each other now for over 20 years, with both of our starts in kind of startups and entrepreneurship and kind of side hustling really for the first part of that. But before we get into all that, why don't you tell us a little bit about you and your background and kind of what got you to where you are now?
Yeah, that's going to be a relatively long story because I started out as a lawyer, never intending to do any of this stuff. Like I worked at a large law firm, which is what lawyers do. Went to Emory Law School, finished first in my class there. Yes. Smart, man. Not that smart. So anyway, worked at a law firm for a little bit, then started being general counsel. I was like, I don't like practicing law all that much, especially when it's billable hours and all that stuff. So I started as general counsel of Eris, which is where I met you. I met Sanjay Parekh there. And we used to come up with ideas and bounce ideas off each other. One of those ideas grew into Digital Envoy, which is a company that we ended up starting, which was fantastic. And then from there, I have always liked baseball, but I've always liked photography too. I coached baseball. So it's like a combination of all this stuff. Being a baseball coach, taking video and help editing it, showing why pitchers are successful, why they're not successful, all that stuff. And then being able to write well on Twitter in short sentences is really important. So the legal background tied with the photography background, tied with the coaching background and love of baseball and technology all created itself into Pitching Ninja.
So why exactly? So yeah, I get that you had this love, but why exactly? What exactly compelled you to start posting and creating an account and posting about this stuff?
So I never really liked Twitter at first. Like I was like, what am I going to say I'm doing on Twitter? I baked a cake. I did whatever, I didn't know what to do. But I realized that I was coaching baseball and I, because I'm a lawyer, I ask a lot of questions and I never wanted to teach these kids what kind of, having a kid playing baseball, people ask me to coach because I like working with kids because I'm a big kid and just like explaining things. But when I found myself explaining it, I was like, I don't want to teach what I was taught because I kind of sucked. It's not like I was a great baseball player growing up or anything like that. I was okay, but not like a major league baseball player at all. You've played softball with me. But I love the sport and wanted to pass it down. So I started learning a lot, asking a lot of questions, from there, I was like, I'm not going to coach my whole life. So I want to be able to share this information with as many people as I can. I've learned from some of the best people who are kind enough to answer my questions. And I have a way of, I had the money to spend on a lot of stuff, a lot of gear, a lot of coaching, a lot of whole bunch of things regarding baseball. I know a lot of people didn't. So I wanted to share that information with others. And I figured Twitter was a good way to do it. So I just kept tweeting what I would learn and what I thought. And from there, like Major League Baseball players started following me. I'm like, this is kind of sick. Like they think what I have to say is interesting. So it was just like a shock that happened, and it just kept growing and growing and growing. There was never a plan to make it big. It wasn't like I wanted it. It wasn't a business idea. I don't even know if it's a business idea today. It kind of is, but it never really was at first. And it just grew on its own. And then from there, I was like, I can't do both. I can't be at Digital Envoy and do this at the same time. I'm being torn two different ways. So I might as well go with the thing that, that I'm known for. I'd rather be known for as Pitching Ninja than as Mr. Geo-targeting man. It just was what I wanted to be known as.
Yeah. So why is it that you picked pitching of all things? Like you could have done batting, you could have done, like base running, like you could have done so many things, right? If you really think about it, there's a lot of different things that you could probably slice into this interesting niche. What was it about pitching specifically?
I've always been fascinated with pitching because it's, number one, you're in 100% of control of everything that happens because you have the baseball and you can make, the hitter has to react to you. So to me, if everything went right, you should be able to throw the ball where you wanted to, move it the way you wanted to, and dominate hitters. So I figured that was one reason that I've always been attracted to that. I think everybody's looking at the pitcher. Nothing happens till the pitcher throws the ball. The game is, half pitching, like half of the players on most college rosters or travel ball rosters are pitchers. So to me, it just seemed natural. And then my son ended up gravitating towards pitching. So that had something to do with it. But it's always been an interest of mine. Like I always liked it because of just this being the center. They're the center of attention. I figured that was an easier thing to teach than hitting, which is reacting to the pitch that comes in.
Right. So how deep down the rabbit hole have you gone? Like, are you thinking about the physics of it? Have you, I can't imagine in law school, you learned a lot of physics. So is this, have you had to figure out that stuff afterwards, or are you recalling high school physics? Like, how deep have you gotten into this?
Oh, as deep as possible. So I do a bunch of different things. One is partly it's trained, like partly looking at pitching mechanics, how to throw hard, how to do pitch grips, how to grip the ball different ways, but also why the ball might move the way it does. And that is a lot of physics and aerodynamics. Like if you're talking about the seams of a baseball, the way the air goes over those seams is really what kind of makes the ball move differently. And some of the stuff we're discovering now, like this isn't like you would think the game's been around for forever, right? There are theories about why baseballs move that have popped up within the last 2 years. And it's from an aerodynamics professor, an aerospace engineering professor, who happened to go to Georgia Tech, but now teaches out in Utah State. And I found him. Like I found this guy and I was like, he's saying interesting things. So I started putting him up on Twitter and all my followers started finding him. And I was like, this guy's going to get a job somewhere soon because a team needs to know this stuff. He was basically everything that you knew about why a pitch would move was wrong. And he kind of put it out there and a team actually did contract with him. So it worked. Really? Yeah. Like that's another thing I do is I actually help find people positions in baseball, both players as well as some things like that. But a lot of players, I started Flat Ground that grew out of my Pitching Ninja Twitter, which is aimed to help basically anybody to find a spot in college or pros. I've had several guys get signed by major league teams because we just put them out there. Like you would think if you're good, everybody's going to find you. That's just not true. And I used my follower base, which in every major league baseball team follows me. So throwing it out there to them and they see this guy that's not signed, they jump on him and sign them. And it's happened, I think at least 40 times I've had players get signed by major league teams.
So that's interesting because like all of these teams, and we know like all of the professional athletic teams have scouts. Clearly they're not doing their job, right? Because you're finding these folks and they're relying on you to do their scouting. So what does that say about that whole setup?
I think number one, it's very income based. So you have people that go to showcases and stuff, but those guys tend to be like having Jack go through showcases. It's expensive. Like a travel team may be a good travel team could be $2,000 to $5,000, let's say. But then you have the actual travel, hotels, being able to take off work, paying for a showcase, paying for tournaments, paying for lessons, paying for equipment like $500 bats, $400 gloves. All this stuff adds up really, really quickly. And you have basically income being the limiting factor for some folks, as well as geography. Like not only within the US, you might have low population density places scouts just don't go to, like middle of Kansas. I don't know. There may be a great player there, but no one ever sees them. Other thing, like also internationally, you may have, like there was a guy that was a pretty good baseball player in the Netherlands, threw like 89, 6'4". Before I had flat ground, he had no way, like schools don't have recruiting budgets to go to the Netherlands.
Right.
But if they see a video of the guy, like, hey, if you're ever over here, you may want to stop by because I have an open scholarship for you. And these things work. This guy got 20 something scholarship offers from a video that I tweeted out.
Yeah.
So it's kind of sick.
So let's talk about how you kind of started this. So you decided to go in on pitching and do videos. What did you do? Obviously you got your Twitter handle, but like what's step number one? You started just taking videos yourself or videos from other people, or what did you do?
I think I originally just started tweeting some of the stuff I learned and then breaking down actual major league video. So showing how pitchers moved to create velocity, to how pitches came off pitchers' hands, actually, how the ball moved. And then some for entertainment. It ended up evolving. There's also a huge entertainment factor where some people don't care about that. Like they're not baseball players. They just like seeing nasty pitches. And for those people, I'm there too. Like, I don't really care. I like all of that. I'm a fan as well as a coach, as well as a technology guy, which I like the technology behind, I'm always curious. So there's technology, physics, all that stuff involved, which is fun to unravel and try to make simple to people so they understand it in a way that's digestible. So I really started out just simple tweets, like throwing some videos up there, pictures, ideas, challenging some people too. Like that was the big thing, is there's some coaches or people selling products that thought that they had these great things. And again, as a lawyer, one of my things is I'm going to poke holes. It's the way we used to argue in the company. Like you sit there and you're like, all right, yeah, you say that, but what about this? What about, because, it's a way of sharpening ideas and also seeing who's full of crap. And, a lot of these guys either didn't like being challenged, or some of them did. And they they learned something about what they were saying, or maybe I realized I was wrong on some things too, which is totally cool. I don't argue always because I think I'm right. I argue because I want to find out if I'm wrong.
Right. So, one thing that I kind of thought of as I've heard you doing this over time, is before every major league broadcast, there's this legal disclaimer, like or at the end of it, you're not allowed to rebroadcast and everything. And I've always thought, like, well, Rob's a lawyer, and I think he's kind of rebroadcasting this. And obviously it's okay now because you've got a relationship with MLB, but were you ever worried about them putting the hammer on you, or did they ever, or was there ever discussion about that?
Oh, it happened. So this happened like, a few years ago.
Okay.
So it's a longer story than that. So I always felt, and there's a fair use exception for anything. So any copyright stuff, there's fair use. I don't rebroadcast again. I'm not sitting there announcing, hey, this is what happened. What I'm trying to do is break things down from a coaching perspective, especially at first, from a coaching perspective to help educate folks. I was growing the game. That was literally my only intent. It was never to make money. It was never to do anything. I didn't make any money off that. Like I was just doing it with my own time to grow the game and help other people learn. But then at one point I tweeted something, and somebody, I don't know if you know Barstool Sports, but so they're another thing. And they have a bunch of loyal followers. They tend to be a little crazy at points. Especially back then. So I said something about somebody like taking my content. The guy actually took something I tweeted, put it under his own name, and it's like, hey, this is nasty. And it's like, wait a second, I did all the work on this. I found this.
Right.
And and he was like, oh yeah, well, it's MLB's, and sent his followers after me, who then reported me to both Twitter and MLB. And MLB did what you're supposed to do. Like in this, they didn't do anything wrong. They just said, hey, we're going to issue a takedown notice. They did. Twitter took it down and closed my account.
Right.
So they locked my account.
Oh, wow.
And
how many followers were you at this point?
80,000, maybe something like that. So maybe 50 to 80, something like that. I forgot the exact number. So I wake up in the middle of the night and sometimes I just can't sleep. We all have that. Yeah. And I looked at my phone, it was blowing up and I'm like, why is my phone blowing up? And it was people going, what happened to your account? What happened? And I just looked at it. I'm like, I'm going back to sleep because I can't do anything about it now. If Major League Baseball wants to keep me off Twitter, they can. That's perfectly fine. I think what I'm doing is right, but I'll worry about it in the morning and see what happens. So there was a huge uproar. Like the entire baseball community, both professional players, front office people, as well as fans, just went crazy that my account got locked. And eventually MLB contacted me through a reporter at that point, I think it was for Yahoo Sports. And he said, hey, they want to talk to you. And they talked to me and they said, we love what you do. We actually just want it to be on the up and up. And I said, honestly, I feel like I have a fair use exception, but I want to do this right too. So it ended up, I'm an independent contractor for Major League Baseball out of it. And now can do anything I want basically, other than like rebroadcast the game, obviously, and stuff. And that grew into that freed me up to do a whole bunch of stuff. So now I'm an analyst for Fox Sports. I'm an analyst I did Peacock games on Peacock TV on Sundays. I do ESPN. I've done MLB Network. I've done a lot.
So really, those Barstool crazies were probably one of your biggest helpers in developing this as a business.
So that is one of those things that I firmly believe is that you can either whine about stuff that happens to you, or you can say it's a blessing in disguise and figure out a way around it. Every time you're dealt a curveball, you can turn it
using those baseball puns there.
Yeah, but every time you're dealt that, you should to me, there's no sense in whining about it. You figure it out and you use it for the best. And if it didn't work, I would have had more free time on my hands at that point. So it wasn't going to kill me at that point, but instead it was the same thing of what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. And this made me extremely strong because it just freed me up. It made me feel better about what I was doing.
So, okay. So now you've got this relationship. What changes in your ability to do these things? Now you've got freedom to do more, right? Did this amplify your ability to do more at that point? And is that the thing that really helped you grow your following?
It really did. So to me, again, the blessing in disguise type thing, it made me feel better about putting stuff out there. It made everything legit. So I started doing more. So at first I was really focusing mostly on the coaching aspects of it and stuff like that, like I said, pitch grips, all that stuff. And then this made me think, baseball is so not bad. They're not intentionally bad. Viral marketing is better than a company speaking to you and marketing the way they want to. And since everybody seemed to like what I was doing, I figured if I did it in the same style, I could help grow the sport and show why these things are so cool. So I invented things like pitch overlays to show how everybody yells at a hitter, why'd you swing at that? Well, I can show why you swing. Number one, if you're yelling at a hitter why they swung at that, you're sitting on your couch. These guys are getting paid millions of dollars to hit a baseball. So you would think they're better than you. They've seen something that you didn't see, that because the pitch is coming at them a certain way, looked like another pitch and they end up swinging at it. So I started showing people.
It's the angle that you see on TV is totally different than the batter's point of view there.
Totally. And the other thing is you can't take each pitch in a vacuum. You have to think, what did the hitter think that pitch was? So why did he swing at this slider that was way out of the zone? Because he thought it was a fastball that was coming down the middle, because they look the same as they're coming at you. Right. And then that slider disappears. So those were things that I think really helped shape the way people watch games. I think now people are much more pitching oriented than when I started. And that is one area where I think I've had a lot of impact, is people not only wanting to pitch, but people understanding that this game is really hard and helping appreciate hitting and pitching.
So, okay. So you made this move now. You've left Digital Envoy full time. So obviously you've grown Pitching Ninja to a point where it's generating revenue. So how did you figure out how to make that move from, hey, I'm doing it for fun, to now I'm making money? And how are you making money in all of this?
Great question. It is like I never, again, when I started this, absolutely didn't even think that it was a possibility. I didn't think that, this dude who's just coaching stuff could ever make money at this. But what ended up happening is, so number one, MLB, I have a contractor relationship. Then people started following me and get a ton of followers. A guy at RotoWare, so there's a company that actually makes t-shirt designs and stuff. And he was a graphic designer as well, worked for an ad. And he just DM'd me and said, "Hey, I got a great logo for you." And I'm like, "Really?" Like, send it over. And he sent over the logo that's on my hat right now. And I'm like, this is kind of cool. And I put it out there. Like, I just changed my Twitter icon to that. And people were like, "I want that on a hat." Oh, actually, I want it on a shirt. So he started breaking shirts. And at first I gave every penny I got from it. So he'd make money, I'd make money, and I'd give my money to charity, all of it. And then it became too much to give all to charity. And I was like, there's a point. I didn't feel comfortable at that point taking people's money because I've done pretty well at DE. Like, I can't complain. I've done well my whole life, and other people need their money more. And I don't really feel like separating them from that. But then at some point it just kept growing and growing and growing. And I'm like, this is a legit business. And it also helps me grow and add, I have a person now that works with me full time, and helps me manage the merch aspects of it and some of the content aspects of it. But then, so there's a merch aspect. There's YouTube pays money. Instagram has, money generating stuff. And then networks that I work with. So I get paid for working with Peacock and FanDuel. So online gambling type stuff. And then MLB Network, if I make an appearance, pays me. Nesson, Red Sox Network pays me too.
Okay.
So like a lot of different avenues of making money.
So that's helped you become more than just a single person thing. So now you've got one employee. So that kind of helps move into the next kind of question. How do you balance all of this with family and, friends and like all of that stuff? I'm sure it helps now having somebody with you. But how do you think about that? And how do you kind of balance the stress of all of this stuff? Because now you're not just watching baseball games for the fun of it. It's a job every single time a game comes on.
Great point. And to me, I still have fun doing it. Like I thrive off other people liking my stuff. I put it out because I like it, but when other people like it too, I'm like, this is cool. Like, I came up with something that other people like. And sometimes there's a lot of other people that like it, millions and millions of people that like it. And that's insanely cool. So it's still always fun. I love the interaction part of it. But I am not great at balancing work life and personal life on this, because it becomes like, Patricia would tell me, you work like 14-hour days on this stuff. And I'm like, I don't think of it like work, because I'm constantly thinking of it and constantly doing something, but I can always take a break when I want to too. So it's not like no one's making me do it. Like, no one says you have to do this. I just do it. So I'm not great at balancing. You're
not exhausted at the end of the 14 hours. It's been fun the whole 14 hours.
It's been fun, but you do get exhausted. So like right now we're at the end of the season. And I think I told you before we started, like, I'm tired, like staying up all night watching a no-hitter and stuff. It gets tiring, no doubt, but it's also like, I can't whine about this. Like, if you're whining about, I understand people whining about their jobs, whining about something that I started because it was fun and still having fun at it every day and watching a sport and having players come up to me and giving me big hugs and crap. Like, I go to the All-Star game and they're like, "Oh my God, it's pitching ninja." I'm like, dude, you're the one getting paid all this money because you're a great baseball player. I'm just a dude with a computer who writes stuff. But it's like become like this folk hero to folks, which is fun. Like, it helps your ego. Like, I love when that happens, and it's great to have that impact and stuff. But yeah, like, I don't think there's any aspect of it that I don't like.
Yeah.
Like, it's,
and you do get a break, right? Like,
yes,
so once the World Series is over, like, do you ramp back up when it's spring training or after that?
Ramp up for spring training. I never really take a full break. Like, I never am out of sight, out of mind. So I'm always doing like something. Right. It's this philosophy that I think players should do, people in anything should do, is get a little better every day at something you do. Work at it a little bit every day. Put something out there every day. Twitter's great because I read my notifications all the time because I want to hear if somebody's complaining about something, if someone thinks I stink, if someone thinks something's particularly good. Because I don't agree with everything they say, but some parts are true. And you have to be able to differentiate that. So I think getting better at anything 1% every day, it adds up, or a fraction of a percent every day.
Right. Right. Okay. So we've talked about kind of some technology. You're obviously a big Twitter user, Instagram user. What other technology or apps or systems or services do you use to help you manage all of this?
Yeah, that's I use a bunch of editing software. So that's one of those things like working in technology. I'm not scared of any of that. And I've always edited, photography and stuff. But I do, did you learn all of that yourself, or did you take a class, or like, how did you learn? I don't like taking classes. I like learning. I like trying things. And when I run into a roadblock, I learn it myself rather than, if I really needed something, I might ask somebody, but I don't remember the last time I did. You can go on YouTube and usually find the answer to something, editing wise. And I've created new things because what I do is I'll learn something and I'll be like, oh, but I can use this for that. And it may be something no one's thought of, because you're constantly trying to improve. I'm constantly trying to show what I see in my head better. And by doing that, like I'm constantly experimenting and stuff, which is another part of the fun stuff of this.
Yeah.
Use all the Adobe products to do my editing and my voiceovers and stuff. Just like camera crap and lighting. And it's hard to even list out all the stuff that I would use, but I'm fluent on everything. TikTok is
there
tough.
One thing that you're like, if I didn't have this, everything would fall apart?
Ooh, yeah. Like if I wasn't able to capture videos online, that would stink.
Yeah.
So being a screen capture is important. I think that's probably the biggest thing. Editing software and stuff is huge.
Okay. So, a lot of folks that are listening to this podcast, they're folks that either have a side hustle or a small business or are thinking about doing one of those things. What kind of advice would you give somebody like that about, thinking about starting a side hustle or a small business and how to think about it and how to be successful?
So I get asked this a lot of times, especially with people like, I've had people on Twitter or Instagram say, I want to be like you. I want to start going into this, doing this, be a content creator, an influencer, like I'm an influencer, whatever the hell that means. And I was like, you can do that, but you have to work unbelievably hard. It's not a matter, especially when you're starting out without a big name, you have to be willing to outwork and outthink everybody else in order to be where you are. People don't put in that work and they don't want to put in that work. Everybody wants the easy answer. Like there's got to be a quick fix to this. Everybody wants a quick fix to being able to throw hard in baseball. They want a quick fix to starting a company or getting rich or whatever it is. There's no quick fix other than some people get lucky. But you make your own luck a lot of times. And it's about working, still working 14-hour days doing this. And if you don't want to do it, that's totally fine. But don't be upset when you don't end up with the results that you want to get, because I feel like, I don't know if I'm smarter, better, whatever, but I will outwork people through being dedicated to doing something every day that people won't do. So that's really it.
Yeah. What's interesting to me is, if you think back to Digital Envoy, we started in 99 and we exited in 2007. So that was 8 years. You started this in 2014 and you've now left and gone full time into it. And it's been 8 years of that as well. So it was a lot of people will look at the end result and be like, I want to be like you now, but don't look back or think about the time that it took you to get from where you started to where you are now.
Absolutely. How hard did we work starting DE? Like how many days did we do then?
It was a lot, but it was fun.
Right. I don't remember sleeping. I remember waking up in the middle of the night with that too, checking my emails. And I know how you checked your emails too. And we would constantly be, just doing something because I didn't want to lose. And you didn't want to either. You're wanting to always get better. And we were competing against better funded people who just didn't work as hard or as smart, and didn't have the right, I think creating the right environment's important, having fun, and being creative and working hard. Those are the keys to everything.
So, okay, I've got one last question for you. Now, this is going to go deep baseball and kind of make you look into the future a little bit. So there's some changes coming in rules for MLB. There's a pitch clock that's coming, and there's also larger bases coming. What do you think that's going to do, first of all, to the game, but also to your business? Because now, maybe there's more pitches or I don't know, something changes about the analysis that you're going to have to do.
So I love change. Like I am not, change should never intimidate anybody. I think some of these changes are really good, and it shows that baseball's experimenting to try to make the product more fan friendly. The pitch clock is huge because I think there's a lot of people who think the game's too slow, boring, whatever. Moving it quicker so that there's less time between pitches is important. And I think that's the big thing, is growing the base, making it more interesting. There's other rules that are tough, like they're reducing the amount of times you can throw over to a base. So you can't pick off, multiple times. They're eliminating the shift, which I think is important because, growing up watching baseball, they didn't shift as much. So you'd have two people on one side of the infield, two people on the other side of the infield. Now, when you watch a game, there's always a player somewhere, and somebody will hit the ball hard in an area that you've always thought is a base hit, and it's not. And batting average have gone down, and pitching has gotten so good that there's less offense because of that. You have not only analytics entering the game to make it harder to get a hit, but you're also having pitchers being trained better, and hitters are just reacting to this fastball that they can't see, and then getting these ridiculous breaking balls they also can't hit. So it's tough. So I think these changes are useful. I don't know how it'll affect what I do, but I think it'll affect the game somewhat. The bigger bases as well, just injuries. Like I hate it when a player gets injured, and creating a bigger path to the base will mean less injuries and maybe more stolen bases, which I think the people that run baseball think that's more exciting.
Yeah. Fans probably think that's more exciting.
I think so too. Yeah.
Maybe it'll be good for the game. Well, Rob, this has been awesome. Where can our listeners find and connect with you?
Pretty much anywhere.
If they already haven't, of the 400,000 or so.
Pretty much anywhere. So I'm on Twitter at Pitching Ninja. I'm on Instagram at Pitching Ninja. TikTok at Pitching Ninja. I don't dance. I'm terrible. And then YouTube at Pitching Ninja videos. And then anywhere, like, I don't know, if you watch me, like I'm on TV occasionally too, my big ugly mug on people's screens, which is scary, but I'm on Ness, and I had mentioned I write for Fox. So I have an article coming out today. Dude, like I'm everywhere. I'm too many places, Sanjay. I don't even know, man. It's tough.
So just search around and you'll find it.
Yeah, exactly. You'll find me, and probably want to just turn off your TV if you see my face.
Awesome. Thanks for coming on, Rob.
Hey, my pleasure, dude.
Thank you for listening to this week's episode of the Side Hustle to Small Business podcast, powered by Hiscox. To learn more about how Hiscox can help protect your small business through intelligent insurance solutions, visit hiscox.com. That's HISCOX.com. And if you have a story you want to hear on this podcast, please visit hiscox.com/share your story. I'm your host, Sanjay Parekh. You can find me on Twitter at Sanjay, that's SANJAY, or on my website at sanjayparekh.com.